Right now, as I speak, there are 25 million simultaneous conversations going on Windows Live Messenger. These are between two or more parties. These are instant message conversations, they're voice over IP conversations, video conversations. In fact, video conversations are ramping significantly on Windows Live Messenger. We have over 300 million minutes per month of face-to-face video conversations happening on Windows Live Messenger. And Windows Live Mail, at 240 million users, that's actually larger than the population of the world's 20 largest cities. So there's a significant number of people actually using these services right now. But the central part of this is these are actually conversations. These are engagements in people's social interactions, your social fabric, your social contact list that you maintain on your Windows Live Messenger buddy list or your contact list in Windows Live Mail. And the central pivot about all this is me. And for all the yous that are me's out there in the audience, think about, as a consumer, the relationships that you have with your coworkers, your friends, your family. And you generally have a sort of trusted inner circle of friends and family that are your relationships. These are the ones that you interact with the most on a most frequent basis, ones that you've chosen to share a fairly significant part of your life, fairly intimate details about your life, such as your presence, or your online or your offline, your cell phone number that you might not give out to everybody. And these populate sort of your inner circle. These are the people, as I said, that have very close views into your life, and you've chosen to make that available. Now, beyond that, you really have there's a set of outer nodes of people that may not have direct relationships with you in the same sense as your close friends and family, but they have some commonality with you. They're college pals you met from college, they're people you met in a previous job, soccer parents, etc. You interact with these people on a fairly frequent basis sometimes, but you've chosen not to actually share a lot of these very close details. Now, there are actually a significant number of businesses clearly built around this outer leaf nodes here. In the physical world, there's all sorts of businesses that cater to forming these relationships and trying to form these bonds. In the electronic world, there are companies like Plaxo, LinkedIn, Classmates.com that are focused on establishing and maintaining and helping you keep up with these relationships. And then beyond this middle tier, there's the outer tier, which there's some degree of, in this sense, there's some sort of sameness, some sort of commonality with the outer people, or the outer businesses in this case. You may drive the same car as some other people, you may have the same stance on some issues, you may be on the same team, but generally you have a very, very tenuous relationship with this very outer group. And what Windows Live as a service allows you to do as a platform, allows you as a business to establish relationships with consumers that are in this very inner circle, the me's and the friends and family that populate your contact list and your buddy list. And in the real world, this would be analogous to a consumer walking down the street with a T-shirt on that was branded with your company's name or logo. Or if they had an electronic presence on the web, perhaps they've chosen to have your name or logo, your company's name or logo on their web presence. And what Windows Live Services allows the consumer to reach out and form and establish these relationships with the middle and the outer tier and bring them in and actually bring those relationships in and have an ongoing dialogue with the consumers. Again, under consumer control, the customers are always in control as to what content they choose to make available or bring in and what parts of their life they choose to expose. And so we actually have over 400 million of these active address books. And active is defined as someone who's logged in and used these services at least once a month. And of the 400 million active address books, we have over 12 billion contact records. And the contact records have such things as your name, your presence information, home address, work address, RSS feed, things like this. And when these things are, if you actually are doing the math in the audience, clearly 12 billion contact records is roughly twice the population of the Earth. But that's actually because a lot of people maintain multiple personas, which is fine because they may choose to segregate some aspects of their work life from their home life and have those appear as different personas. So you can think of this as an audience. In fact, if you think about this as a way that you can actually start to directly address, as a business, reach out to consumers, we believe this starts to form a virtuous cycle. And the way the initial entry into this cycle is the fact that we have an audience. We have these consumers that are on this slide at the 3 o'clock position, and we have these 400 million addressable members of this audience that developers can choose to interact with and write applications that leverage. And what fuels this virtuous cycle is the money coming in from advertisers or from business models that are brought by the developers who choose to address this audience, and which, of course, is built on top of the live platform. And as more applications are built, it draws in more consumers, which draws in more advertisers, which causes us also to build out the platform. So it starts to feed upon itself and starts to form this virtuous cycle as things continue to evolve. In fact, it's kind of interesting. We've been doing this for 6 or 7 years now, building out these services. And 6 years ago, if you went to one of the developers in our team and said, "What are you building?" they'd say, "The mission statement is, we are building the largest, most profitable communication service on the planet." That's our mission statement. But in reality, as I said, we're building an audience, and this audience is addressable by the businesses that choose to interact and make use of these Windows Live services. So conceptually, an overview of some of the services we have. This is not a strict taxonomy per se, but this is just the way we tend to think about it internally, is there's a set of finished services that Microsoft authors, as well as a set of finished services that you as developers or you as businesses choose to author. And a lot of these are services that we choose to operate ourselves, very broad-scale services like Messenger and Hotmail or Windows Live Mail, Spaces, Live.com as the portal, etc. Those, in turn, reside upon a middle layer that's a consistent set of features around search, presence, mapping information, mobile. And we'll be giving demos of all this stuff in just a few minutes. And all these pieces, in fact, reside upon 3 key underpinning parts. There's the contact list, which I discussed before. That's the 400 million active address books. The identity, which is a single consistent live ID, this live identity that Ray Ozzie spoke of on Sunday night, that allows developers and consumers to have a consistent way to view into all the various Windows Live services, as well as all the third parties that interact with the Windows Live services. And of course, there's storage to store everything from the smallest blob of data that resides in the contact list all the way up to digital photographs and other things relating to developers and consumers. So, as I said, there's a significant number of addressable services we have right now, a significant number of audience members, and there's ways that you, as developers and as IT professionals, can interact with these if you wish to form a B2C relationship with these consumers. Messenger, as a rich Win32 application running on Windows XP and lots of down-level versions of Windows, offers a number of extensibility features that we'll be giving demos of here in a little bit that enables the consumers to interact with their social relationships and form these social bonds and invite these businesses into those social relationships. Gadgets are little small asynchronously executing bits of code that run in the context of a browser that are reach-based. We'll be giving some demos of this in a little bit. And mashups, which are applications, composite applications that are built from collections of gadgets and services that expose finished services such as Windows Live Mail as a mashup or our new dev.live.com site as a mashup. So speaking of that, we actually on Friday launched our new dev.live.com website. This is a central one-stop shop for all developers to come in and find information around all the Windows Live services, the SDKs, forums, aggregate RSS feeds, blogs from the various team members. And dev.live.com itself is a mashup. It is a mashup of MSDN content. It's a mashup of MSDN forums, of blogs that may exist elsewhere in Spaces or across the various Windows Live properties. And we actually constructed the website as a showcase, as a way that developers can go in and actually see how we actually built the site itself, so you can learn how you can build your own mashups and use your own services. In that sense, the website is edible in the sense that you can actually take it apart. We encourage you to go in, look, right-click, view source, see how we did things, how we implemented, for example, search, how we implemented the Virtual Earth SDK as example mashups. And with that, we'll just start right into the demos, and I'll introduce Ken Levy, my demo meister, to dive in and start doing some demos of the dev.live.com site as a mashup.
All right, so you may have visited the site if you read the announcement or heard about it. I'm just going to give a kind of a brief tour so you have a good idea of what it is on the site, and we're going to jump back in later demos to go into more depth on some of the mashups on the site. I'm actually a product planner on the Windows Live platform team focused on our story for developers. So if you click over to What is Live, we have kind of a basic description of what the site's about, and we also have a section on business, so it gives you some idea of the various monetization opportunities that exist for developers and businesses. Keep in mind that a lot of the content on the site right now is, the content that you see is going to be updated on a regular basis very frequently. It's going to be very dynamic. If you go back to the home page and so forth, you'll see a lot of RSS icons. What we're going to do is treat the site a lot like various sets of blogs, in the sense you'll have main news, but when you drill into sub-content, like if you go to Messenger, there'll be like Messenger news. So if you're a developer or someone is more interested in just Messenger news and not the main headline news, there's a separate RSS feed. So it's really like a series of sub-blog content, similar to some aspects of like Channel 9, but there's no plans for having multimedia in here, because when we have multimedia, we'll probably just put it on Channel 9 or some aspect like that. And a lot of the content we link to here is actually going to msdn.com. So our goal is not to replace Windows Live developer content that's on msdn.com. We'll still have msdn.com/live that is a landing page for people browsing around MSDN and so forth. But what it'll be is a very interactive, dynamic site for news and information and samples and so forth. And we'll actually be hosting mashups on the site. And there's a demo that's a little bit later. I'm not going to jump into it quite yet. So to give you a kind of a brief overview of some of the services, because it's not always clear exactly what you can do as a developer on the Windows Live platform. So if we look at things like a Messenger, that's a little unique because it's both a client component and it's also involving services in terms of the Messenger protocol and so forth. And it's been out for a while now is the ability to create bots. So they're robots that a user can interact with online in an IM fashion. And then there's activities, which is allow you to host Internet Explorer inside an activity window that interacts with the conversation, either a single person chatting with the activity code or two people chatting, and the activity is kind of like a virtual third person. And there's demos of those two things later in this presentation. One other thing to note is very recently, I believe that was Friday, we posted a beta of something we call the Messenger Add-in SDK. Now this is fairly new, and for developers, we're looking for feedback on what they're interested in doing in scenarios. What it does is it's an SDK for Visual Studio that allows a VB.NET or C# developer to create a DLL, managed code, safe, that gets added into the Messenger client. And then it can be like a local bot, or it can customize some of the client UI tiles and so forth. So you could do things like when you're set for away and someone says, hey, are you there? You could have your little bot on your client say, oh, I'm actually out playing Xbox 360. I'll be back in an hour, or something like that. So that's something that we're working on, looking for feedback, but it's independent of the bots and activities because it runs local on your machine per user. And so there's this SDK online. And you'll see in each of these sections that we kind of have it set up where there's like a news section, and then we're right now aggregating an existing team blog. We may end up having a whole other set of aggregated news when we have information from multiple sources. Again, because we're really thinking in terms of mashup, so it's really a central location that developers come to get information. And if There's also forums, so if you were to click on Messenger Forum, for example, it'll take you to the MSDN forums, and developers can ask questions. We'll have more and more participation from product team members getting feedback. There's also some information here on Windows Live ID, and what we're doing here is actually disclosing some of our upcoming plans for the fall for developers and getting feedback until a beta rolls out. So if you're interested in that topic, you can go to the Live ID section. And let's see, I forgot the connection running. Gadgets, there's an interesting story here because right now you might be familiar with MicrosoftGadgets.com. So that site is maintained right now. It's as is, meaning there's a gallery of gadgets. I'll show a demo in the next section of the demo set here. But what we're still doing is aggregating news and information and so forth and highlighting some of the key gadgets here. But you'll still can get directly to the Gadgets website, Microsoft Gadgets, and we recently posted a new Gadget SDK for Visual Studio that's a real simple way of getting right into the code to host your own component on live.com by creating a gadget. Another thing I should mention about gadgets is we are in the works to support gadgets on Windows Live Spaces. So it's something we're considering. We want feedback of like where else would you want to host gadgets besides live.com. Now, in terms of search, there's another section coming up where we have some demos about macros and the APIs. But you'll notice there's like a getting started, and the SDK is online for download, and your docs are online at msdn.com. In terms of Virtual Earth, I'm not going to go into depth of the actual demo because we want to put it in context of the Virtual Earth part of this talk a little bit later. But there is a Virtual Earth SDK here, which I'll demo. There's a gallery of Virtual Earth apps, so there's quite a bit of information here. So we're really trying to glue together a lot of useful information, have RSS feeds so you can subscribe to them, and so forth. So we want it to be a very dynamic site. We want feedback from developers on how we can improve the site. So with that, there'll be more demos of the actual contents on the site as we go. But I'm going to switch it back to George and let him continue talking.
Okay, we can go back to slide deck. So speaking of gadgets, as I alluded to earlier, gadgets are little mini applications that you can write that actually interact with consumers. They can be hosted as on live.com. They are arbitrary third-party code that can be hosted on live.com running in the context of a browser. They can run in a Vista sidebar. And they also can be created with the new Atlas toolset, which was at Mix 06 in March, announced a Go Live license where you can actually download the SDK for free. You can host the actual gadget infrastructure on your own website. And so this is a way that you can allow consumers to actually have a very rich interactive experience with little bits of code that are easily bite-sizable, consumable, and hostable on a number of different properties and a number of different locations. And the actual infrastructure for gadgets is the same infrastructure that we're actually using to build the live.com services. So Windows Live Mail, for example, is actually built on top of the gadget infrastructure. All of our web presence services, including live.com or dev.live.com itself, is built on the same gadget infrastructure, same gadget framework. And this essentially consists of a series of layered pieces that enable developers to have a richer, higher-level experience in writing JavaScript code than what you can get with just the standard raw JavaScript that exists today. There's a kernel piece, there's pieces that add type safety, typing information, there's a resource loading architecture. And from an architectural perspective, and starting to speak to some of Ray Ozzy's points on Monday or Sunday night, gadgets are essentially a way that you can do client-side composition of services. You can actually have two or more gadgets running on the same page. These gadgets run in their own isolated iframe, independent of each other, and they can't see each other's process space, so to speak, because they're actually running independently in these iframes. So this is a way that a developer can actually do client-side composition of multiple data sources as opposed to server-side composition. And we're actually using this significantly in, for example, Windows Live Mail, as I said, is built on the gadget infrastructure. The list box control is a separate control in Windows Live Mail. The rich text edit control is a separate control. The help control is separate. All these things are loaded from separate different resources asynchronously, and we can actually control, and you can control the ordering and the display of these things from a resource perspective to give a very snappy response to consumers when they first visit the page or on subsequent page loads. And there are at multiple levels you can actually program these gadgets. From a consumer perspective, as Ken mentioned, we have a gadget gallery where developers can post gadgets, consumers can vote upon them, they can download them, they can add them to their live.com portal, they can add them to their Vista sidebar, and you can also write your own gadgets using Atlas and host them on your own arbitrary website. So we'll move right on to Windows Live Search. Search itself is an extensible architecture where consumers, developers, anyone can extend the service by writing your own macros. And macros are essentially ways to either script or scope different search queries, different search terms for different sites, or for different, as I said, terms across the internet. And they're very easy to actually write and publish. We also have a similar gallery of search macros that you can go and discover on microsoftgadgets.com/macros, where third parties, anybody can, in fact, can script their own macro, host it up there. Again, you can vote on it, you can download it, you can use this and interact it, plug it in very easily into whatever web experience you want. We also have a set of lower-level SOAP APIs that let you directly connect to the Windows Live Search services and directly consume the search itself. In fact, that's exactly how we did things in dev.live.com, and I would encourage you to actually look, just right-click and view source on how we implemented the search tab, uses these exact same SOAP APIs of how we actually scope search on the website itself to return search query terms across MSDN and the various Windows Live properties. So, with that, we'll go back to Ken, and we'll do some demos of the gadgets and search macros.
All right, so I'm going to bring up live.com. And this live.com website, it's Windows Live Search page with gadget hosting. It's still in beta. There'll be updates in the near future. If you haven't seen the page, it's very, very rich in terms of the use of dynamic HTML, the HTML. So, for instance, when I bring up my page, I usually just leave it with the contacts, with the gallery here of information hidden. So what I can do is select any type of gadget that's listed here and just drag and drop. It's not quite the most intuitive way of finding something for the first time, so that we're taking feedback on interface functionality, and you'll see changes in the very near future. So what I'll show you here is how to use this particular gadget, which is kind of defaulted on the page. No big surprise here. Here's the forecast in Seattle. Seems like every demo I do, it's just all rain every time in the four corners here. If you click here and say add, you just actually type in Boston here. Now, this is using Ajax-type functionality where it's actually going out and doing server-side lookup based on what you type in, gives you a drop-down list. You can actually pick a city and move it up higher. I can actually delete the Seattle one and hide it, and it updates the title bar. So there's a little bit of a framework going on here where each gadget falls under a set of functionality and UI behavior. All right? And what you can do, besides just the native ones you see here, is navigate over to the Microsoft Gadgets.com site. And the first thing you'll want to do is click on Gallery. And it gives you, I don't know exactly how many are in here now, at least a couple hundred, I believe. A few created by Microsoft, a lot of them created by companies and developers independently. And it's a way of just go exploring what's there. It's also a good way of finding out what kind of gadget you might want to develop or your business create or so forth. One fun one that's worth looking at is one where you just do a search on this tag gas, and it's kind of a topical gadget, so to speak. So I click on this one, and usually there's a description and who created it, what company. And you can preview it here and get some information and comment on it, but there's a nice little link here that allows you to just directly add it to live.com. So notice it navigates to some XML file. It's a little XML manifest file that kind of describes where the JavaScript and HTML is. And then it allows you to kind of host it on this gallery pane. And you drag and drop it here. and it makes sure that the user is sure that they want to host it here. It's not an ActiveX control. It's just a nice confirmation that you want to host it here, because you'll be going out through a source to get external data. And what this one is, it remembered the last lookup here, and if I change the zip code, it'll do another search lookup. Let's see if I try that again. And what it's doing based on the zip code is just going out and doing a search on the cheapest gas in that area. And you can click on it and get more information on the provider of this particular gadget. But it's just one simple little gadget where the idea is that another website other than live.com has data, and it might be multiple sources. Now you might ask yourself, how does that work? Because you're not really allowed to use cross-domain HTTP calls through web services. So live.com hosts its own proxy that allows the gadgets to talk directly to it, and it goes out to the server, gets your feed. So any HTTP data source, based data source that you have, you can actually go out and get multiple data sources and aggregate them together, and that's what we call a mashup. So a mashup can be contained within a gadget. So if we go back here, let's click on Gallery, and there's one that's a little more B2C oriented, business oriented. So I'll type in eBay and click here. And the folks at eBay, the developer group, created this little gadget here, and I'll click. And this is actually to help inspire ideas about a typical B2C type gadget that would be useful for a user that might want to customize their live.com homepage. So let me close that one. And if I drag and drop the eBay search one, and I'll install that. All right, and let's search for an Xbox 360 here. And it goes out to eBay, does a direct search with their APIs, and notice you can just click Next and scroll through the list, and then if you click on it, it'll just take you directly to the web page on ebay.com for that one. So it's actually a good way for sites to drive traffic just based on hosting a gadget, because users can get personalized information and aggregated data source right inside a gadget. Now, something else to look at on MicrosoftGadgets.com, let me go back to Microsoft Gadgets, is something George mentioned about search macros. So there's actually a gallery of search macros. It's kind of a query language that you can persist on live.com. Now, if I click on something like the MSDN macro here, there's a nice gallery of quite a few, 311. It's growing on a regular basis. And you click, and it's kind of like a gadget in the sense of the way it knows how to put itself on the live.com site. And there is a team blog on macros if you want to find out more information. But here, you can actually then bring it in and host it right on the page if you want. And you can click Install, and it'll actually add itself right up here. There's nice drop-downs you can manage, so forth. So there's a lot of functionality on live.com being worked on to handle search macros, to really help search functionality. If I want, on live.com, I can search something like Windows. Let me actually add a plus here, just to be exact string. And you'll see you can search the web, and there's tabs. It's just using dynamic HTML, so I'm still on the same page. And click on Images, and it's using AJAX. So as I scroll the mouse wheel down, it's actually pulling more images off the server as I scroll. There's no next button. It's just knowing. Same way with the scroll bar here. If you search on feeds, it'll just search RSS. So things like blog feeds or any website that's serving up RSS, it's just doing searches across feeds, RSS and Atom, and academic products and so forth. So now let's jump back to the search APIs. I'm going to go to dev.live.com again and take a quick peek at the search SDK. And all the documentation is in the MSDN library. And basically, it's a SOAP-based method call called search. You do have to get an app ID for allow you to make method calls, and you get thousands and thousands of free access a day for calling the search engine to do whatever you want with the search results. There's parameters like latitude, longitude, and what kind of location and language you're interested for when you're doing the search. And so it's basically a SOAP-based API call to use the whole Windows Live search engine. And there's docs on here, and we have an SDK for VB and C# that you can download and see the code. And what you basically get using your Passport Windows Live ID account, you get this app ID. It's kind of like a GUID, and that's like your key. So you pass that number in your method call, and you can call the search engine. So if we go back to dev.live.com, what we're really focused on the site is to continue building and enhancing the dev.live website using our own Windows Live services. So for example, if you take a look at this search box, your first impression would be, oh, you're just searching the contents of this site. Well, remember, dev.live is kind of a mashup itself. So it's like we're not hosting all the content here. A lot of the content's on msdn.com, microsoftgallery.com, team blogs, right? It's all over. So if I were to just search for Virtual Earth here and get the results set, we have a little pane, and you can see here's the results, quite a few results. But we prioritize the search results on the sites that we host our developer information for Windows Live. Things like dev.live, Microsoft Gadgets, MSDN, or forums. And you can just click right there and it'll take you right to that message, so forth, team blogs and so on. So when you do a search, there's actually some script code that's using the search SOAP-based APIs to go out, get the results, and display them here. In fact, as you scroll down and you get to the bottom, it'll continue to pull down more data, so you don't have to keep hitting next and back and so forth, just growing the list and so forth. And if you hit View Source, then you could actually see how that functionality works right here. So that we're using the search API for that. All right? And that ends this section of the demo. I'll switch back to George once again.
Okay. So we'll move on to Virtual Earth. Certainly, Virtual Earth has lit a fire with respect to consumer interests simply because it's very visible, it's very easy to navigate. Lots of people generally tend to like maps. Virtual Earth itself is a platform that lets businesses host or mash up their own business data, any kind of geospatial data, and overlay it on top of the Virtual Earth maps. And we actually aggregate a number of different mapping sources, both from street data as well as overhead satellite imagery. The most recent ones include the bird's eye view, the high resolution, 30-degree angle overshot views of many major cities in the United States and soon on a worldwide basis. And we also, I guess it was just 2 weeks ago or so, announced, or it started being up on the site, traffic data from a number of different cities. So you can actually see live, real-time traffic data aggregated over freeway maps and such. So this is a way that businesses themselves can host and essentially remash up and add maps to their services. Virtual Earth itself is built on the same gadget infrastructure, the same gadget architecture, uses the rich AJAX interaction methodology, so you can actually do a lot of the calls asynchronously, offloading a lot of the computation, a lot of the work to the client, which again is doing most of the composition of multiple different data sources. We also have, in addition to the public web-facing properties around the Virtual Earth SDK and such, we have a set of business-oriented SOAP APIs that allow, if a business wants to have higher degrees of higher service level agreement interactions with the data itself, can have contractual relationships with Microsoft and get interaction or get activities and get direct access to the underlying data through SOAP APIs. And so one example, one case study we want to show here as a demo is John L. Scott, which is a Seattle Northwest real estate company serving Washington, Idaho, and Oregon. They recently replaced all their mapping infrastructure with using Virtual Earth. And their development team actually was able to do that complete replacement of their existing mapping technologies into the Virtual Earth platform in just 3 weeks. And since that time, since they've launched the new site with the new Virtual Earth technologies, they've noticed their page views have actually gone up by 30%. But more importantly, from at least their perspective, is that it has really increased their agent efficiencies because previously there were a lot of what they called wild goose chases, where an agent would take a prospective buyer out to a house, and they'd either drive up the street and the buyer would immediately say, nope, don't like the house, don't like the neighborhood, this is not the region for me. And there would be these just wasted trips, wasted time, wasted gas. And what they found actually is there's been a significant number of reductions of this because consumers are able to either in the agent's site or on the agent's premises or from their house actually have using the very high-resolution overflight photographs, these bird's eye views, have a better view of the house, the neighborhood, the surrounding landscape, and has really reduced the amount of time the agents would otherwise be out in the field. So with that, we'll go back to the demo machine, and Ken will do a demo of the John L. Scott website.
So we're here, if you want to write that down, johnlscott.com. That's an L, not a 1. And when you look at this site, the quickest way to jump into see the virtual Earth-based mapping, you can click Find a Home and do interactive search, or you can just click on the map area that they support right now for mapping, and it takes you right to the interactive search. And it'll first give you a general area, and you can do a filter, and you can pick a certain range of homes, and it will, min-max how many bedrooms and so forth, and it's continually doing a filter. As I was making changes, you'll see how many properties are found. Now, to check out this yourself, you can use the really cool hotkey that's for Virtual Earth, and you just hold down the Alt key and just grab a little region, and then it will zoom right in that direct area. So now we've got 614, but then if you click like here and you zoom in like this, I'll jump right in. Now it'll filter that area down. It's doing a search, doing a filter. Now I'm down to 22. It makes a little more sense. Now I'll scroll just a little bit down, and as you hover over using Ajax technology, it's actually just, as I hover over, I'm not clicking, I'm just hovering over here. You can actually see a photo of the home. A lot of people go by first impression of things. And you have hot links right in here. What's really interesting is how they made the UI fairly slick, where you can just hover over the items down here, because you could be reading this and say, oh, I just hover over this one, and it actually highlights that one directly above. And then, of course, you can click View Property, and it takes you to a page. You can change the search results. You can scan out a little bit, and it would redo the search and add more properties to the area, and so on. One of the cool things, of course, is switching to aerial or bird's eye view, so you can just scan around the neighborhood. I guess it's like looking for a house in a helicopter. So anyway, that's a cool demo of Virtual Earth being hosted on a site. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to jump back to the dev.live.com website. And if you click on SDK, you jump right into here on the dev.live website. Now you'll notice this doesn't really match the UI that's part of the dev.live homepage. Well, again, we want to host mashups and applications right on the dev.live site itself. And what the Virtual Earth team targeting developers created is an actual Virtual Earth mashup application used for developers that are building on Virtual Earth. So to take a real simple example, you can scroll down and just zoom in on this area, and you could say like, oh, here, let's see, use push pins. We've seen different types of maps on push pins, so you can just click on these different areas, and it will show you different types of push pins. And if I click down, like draw lines, and I say, okay, draw a polygon, it's kind of like mapping a certain area, right? Like a park or something. Well, you can actually click on this tab right here, and it will show you the actual code that you need to do that, the HTML and JavaScript. That's all you need. And you can click over here and say reference, and it goes right to the MSDN content for that method that you do for the Virtual Earth object. See? So for a developer, you're working on Virtual Earth, say, oh, I want that push pin here, I want to do this. It's a really simple way, rather than going to some big, huge mashup application that does a lot of this, you can really drill in. So let's take a look at how this is really useful for a developer. You can actually select this text or just click copy, and it puts it on the Windows clipboard. Now I'll open up Notepad and paste it in here, and there's the code. It's a lot better to bring it up in like Visual Studio Editor, of course, but just for quick demo purposes, I'm just going to paste it in a file here. And of course, if you have the title, I can say this is my demo mashup, right? And then I'm going to save this, and I'll go to my C drive, and I have IIS hosted here. You can put it to your C drive and just double click on the HTML file. You'll get a little pop-up like security just saying, are you sure you want to open it? Because it's local, it's not going through HTTP. But if you put it on a server, and I have a little virtual demo folder, and if I call it test1.htm, now I basically saved this file here, right? Now I create a shortcut for that file, so I'm going to open that up. And it's going to navigate to localhost, and it's just opening up right here. So, of course, you're going to put it on your website, and here it is. And so this is the file I actually saved. Here's my title up here. This is my demo, so you can see I can modify the code and do whatever I want. But notice I click Draw Polygon, and then there it is. So this is one of those things where you can train your family members how to create a virtual Earth map-up. But the realistic scenario here is you take that snippet of code and you embed it in your virtual Earth-based mashup application. And so it's a really simple way of jumping around and finding out cool functionality in virtual Earth. And this is something that we would like to do for, get feedback and how useful it is and how it relates to other content. A good example is the first thing I started thinking about when I saw the search on the dev.live.com homepage is how do we make it even more simple for developers to find out how we implemented this feature on the dev.live site. So it would be nice if we had something where you had to view code or hover over it, or a separate section about how we built the site here and so forth. So, back to George.
Okay, so we'll go to the presentation machine and move on to extensibility of Messenger as a platform running on a Windows machine. So there are a number of different extensibility mechanisms we'll be talking about and doing demos. One of the ways that you can extend this, and again, this plugs back into the rich social network, the social fabric, your contact list that you have and maintain on your Windows Live Messenger application. And the Activities API allows you to extend essentially the IM window. You as the developer can extend the IM window to add activities, which are interactive bits of code or web pages that you and somebody else who you're engaging in an IM conversation can both share, view at the same time, interact with. And this is, again, is a way from a business perspective, businesses can author these things to go out and actually interact with consumers. In this case, this actual screenshot, this is an activity that we've authored for the Windows Live Safety Center, where if you're like me, I'm the technical support person for my family, my extended family. This is a way that I can, if I'm having a chat conversation perhaps with my mother or my aunt who's living in Tennessee and she's having some problems with her machine, I can actually, with her permission, reach out in the IM window itself and say, can I actually run the Windows Live Safety Center to run a scan on her machine remotely? So I can actually remotely run a defrag, a virus scan, etc. And the output of that is sent both to my window and to her window, and I can interact essentially in a controlled fashion with her machine to actually help debug it. So this is a way, again, that businesses can extend Messenger to add their own activities from a B2C perspective. And we'll go back to the demo machine, and Ken will do some demos of these.
All right. So here we're running the Windows Live Messenger beta. And what we have here is just a basic list of contacts. The first thing I'm going to show you is actually a little bit of information about activities, and then I'm going to jump into bots because bots can host activities. So if you end up opening up and creating I'm going to actually just open up a conversation window without running anything and typing anything, and you can actually see these conversation icons here in the window for like see list of games, see list of activities. Well, a lot of these games are actually activity, but the category has been separated because a lot of people looking for activities completely isolate productivity or some other kind of specific functionality in games. There's quite a bit of games out there where you can just click on this list, it goes out and pulls it down to a dynamic list. And there's many games out there the developers have created where, notice the icons right here on the right. If there's one person in the icon, that means it's kind of a game you play on your own where you're just chatting with the code that's involved with the activity. If it's two people, it means you're creating a conversation on both sides with another person, and you're activating this activity on both sides, and this code has access to intercept the data that's moving back and forth and interact like a third person or move stuff around in your activity window. So to give a quick idea is, just without even having a conversation with anyone, is just to jump up on the search activity. And notice suddenly your conversation window expands to bring in a little 500 by 500 window that hosts Internet Explorer right here. So an activity can open up this activity window and navigate to any URL, okay? And the activity code itself can interact with the Internet Explorer object model, as well as the activity APIs themselves that hook up the channels and the text window and so forth. So if I type in virtual Earth, this is a very simple example of just how you're integrating a page over here on activity while you might be running an activity. There's activities here like safety scanner type thing where you actually will set up a conversation with someone and it'll say, okay, I want to launch the safety scanner activity. The other person will say, I accept, and you'll bring up the Windows Live OneCare, and like what I could do with a family member that's not an expert on computers is actually run like virus checking and so forth remotely right here to the other machine as long as they accept on the other side. And you'll actually see the progress and what's going on, and it'll send information back in the activity window on both sides. So that's businesses can create their own activities that do similar functionality. Some of the other activities here, like whiteboarding or shared maps. So if you have, it just brings up virtual Earth on the activity, and the other person on the conversation brings it up, and as one person changes the map on the other window, it automatically refreshes. So you can have a conversation, or you could be on the phone mode with microphones chatting and say, hey, let's go over here, switch it to bird's eye view. This is where we want to meet for dinner or something. So the activities are based on JavaScript and HTML or DHTML, and so just basic scripting allows you to access the page contents and navigate, as well as access the activities API. And if you go to the dev.live.com website, there's a whole SDK up there, and there is many examples out there, developers creating activities. So one of the best ways to get an understanding of the benefit of activities is to actually take a look at bots and how some bots that have been built use activities in combination with the text bot itself. So the first one, it's very entertainment oriented, and I'll just click on this one. And the way this works is you just add the address of the bot, the email address of the bot, right to your contacts and just start a conversation. So you can say hello. Typical things are hello, menu, or help. Those seem to be the most common ones that people type in. But notice the Movie Scout says back, and you'll notice here's the added movies scout at botmetro.net. So you just add that to your Messenger contact list, double click, and there you're having a conversation. By the way, these bots activities work with Messenger, MSN Messenger 7.0, 7.5, and the new Windows Live Messenger. And so there is a program out there that's with the database and so forth that allows conversation, very much like when you were to call a cable or wireless phone company and says press 1 for this, press 2 for this, or airline company. So if I type in I want to enter my zip code first. So that way the bot has some context of where I am. So if I ask for where movies are playing, it'll have some idea of where to direct me. So if I type in movies or I type in 1, notice it gives me a list of movies, and then it'll actually show you the theaters that it's playing here. You can actually click and it'll bring up Internet Explorer directly from here. If I type in trailer, this particular bot has a way of promoting like some movie every few weeks, and it won't be a surprise which one they're doing at the moment. See, and it'll actually bring up Internet Explorer and just play the trailer in the activity window, and you can still be having a conversation with the bot and so forth.
So the interesting thing to note here is that these activities also, and these bots, can be accessed through cell phones. So that this textual output, you can actually, if you're running the messenger access through mobile, you can use your cell phone to actually call up and interact with these same bots, because it's mainly just a text interactivity.
Yeah, you can get MSN Messenger, the Pocket Edition, for free for Windows Mobile, smartphone, or Pocket PC. So last demo on this particular bot is when you click background, notice it shows this little image here, and a lot of times when functionality of a bot or activity is going to either navigate to some page specifically or do something to the client, the user has to accept it for security reasons. And things like themes are super popular with the instant messaging. So to take on the theme of the particular movie they're promoting, you just hit accept, and notice now this particular conversation window will be customized with the theme that they've downloaded here. So again, there's a lot of particular functionality that you have the customized themes and in an API that the activities and the bots can access. So that's kind of an entertainment one. There's also things like Yellow Pages, I am local at msn.com. If you type in help or menu, and you could do very similar things, like you put in a zip code, search for a movie, and navigate the things, and so on. So you can actually find things that will bring up like virtual Earth in the map. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one. I'm just kind of exposing you to some of the ones that are out there. Now, to give you an idea of something that could be useful for you while you're here this week, if you haven't already checked it out, and I'm going to show you the scenario of how to do it from scratch, because I don't have it in my contact list. We created a TechEd bot. So you say TechEd06 at hotmail.com. Pretty easy to remember. TechEd06 at hotmail.com. You add it to your contacts, and you give it a moment for it to detect its presence, and it will move up to your list here, and you double click, and you need to hit add, and so it says welcome. And it also reminds you to check out the new dev.live.com website as a greeting. But now that I've added it, when I sign back in, I don't think that greeting appears. It's kind of a one-time thing. Usually you just type in menu, and that's like your home page, right? It's like clicking the home button in the browser. And you can say, okay, give me schedule information or session information, and then there's a sub-menu, and I type in title, I say Windows Live, and it will do a filter on the various ones, and I can see it. Now, if I was running on a Pocket PC right here with Wi-Fi or smartphone connected through your wireless service, you'd actually be seeing this text right there. So you can be in a session checking stuff out like this right on a device, or just use wireless with Messenger. Notice this particular return has an activity. So you just click here, and it brings up the browser, and it navigates you to session information, which you can click to. This data came from the TechEd website RSS. So what's happening is the RSS feeds from the TechEd website and all the sessions and everything just get populated into a database that the bot refreshes and uses as part of its system. So if I click menu again, and you can do things like, oh, let's check out activities. And that means activities in the area. And if you say you're looking for like a restaurant later, and it brings up Virtual Earth, and you hover over, and it's just hosting it right here like a normal app. And you can click around and click the aerial view, whatever, and figure out, you could actually figure out here, like if you want to walk there, take a bus, whatever, and just browse around airline information. So it's very much geared towards you being an attendee here at the conference. You can also just type in schedule. And notice it actually just says the bot is writing a message. It's just like having a conversation. But notice if the bot's smart in knowing like what's going on right now. So it doesn't make sense to bring up what sessions were yesterday. So notice that it has today's date, and you can just hit next and see what sessions are coming up in that order. One of the things we put a fair amount of work in, because this is one of the most useful things in the bot, is mapping. So check out the map system here. You just type in map. That's all you do, is just go into the bot and just say map. And you bring up this map here, and you can just click on which day you want. You click here, which level. Notice all the maps are here. So it's a quick way of just scanning around. If you click on Tuesday and go to level 3 where we are, watch as you hover over here. You just click right here, and using that RSS feed data, here's the actual agenda. So if you want to know what's in this room after here, Windows PowerShell. See? So you can just scan around and see, and here's back to level 0. And one of the things I'll point out is I've had some questions like, where's the Windows Live booth? I heard you have a booth there with various team members. Well, if you go down to the level 0, here's the meals. Just walk right through here and come over here in the blue area, and our booth is right there. There's like 2 stations for Windows Live, various team members there. So, all right, and I'll close on this one for the TechEd bot. And next one I'm going to show is actually how you can find some bots from the user interface. So you can actually click like here and say bots, and there's a list of some bots that are available. And one of the more interesting ones is the Encarta one. And you click and just say OK, and I have to add this to my allow list. And so Encarta as a service. So I can say something like, what is the population of Boston? I'm just using Encarta. Oh, I have to pick which one here. What is that? Try it again. Don't know if pop is the... There we go. A little over 500,000. If I say, how long does an... So you can have fun just trying out using Encarta through a bot. But again, many folks now around the world are using instant messaging as a way of communicating online, and more they're interested in doing it for data and website stuff. So it's a very common thing now. So it's a little bit of a paradigm shift of how bots can be used in B2C or business, and how it can help drive traffic to a site or have help with customer support. So speaking of customer support, I'm going to show a quick example of kind of a hypothetical scenario of a support system. So if I click on this one here, it's kind of a test bot, right? And if I just say test, so forth, I'm going to go to this page here. Let me switch back to bring up 2 windows at a time. Now what we have here is this page where, assume that it's at a company behind a firewall, the user is signed in, and what's happening here is I can hit accept. Now just pretend this is on another machine here, and I hit click accept, and now I'm back over, and the user's talking on the bot, and I say, I need some assistance. Okay? And so what's happening here is the bot, notice the bot says, customer needs, I have no idea, understand the question. This is just a test, meaning this particular one hasn't put in a lot of logic to help the user. It's just showing how someone at the company that's dealing with the bot has a monitor system. So while the program is talking to a user, a real person can monitor in a window the text that's going on in this conversation window. So I said, do I install my... Right? And then the bot says, I don't understand. So there's a series of questions. It may have a menu system like, would you like to do this? Did this help you? Yes or no? And some agent can be monitoring here. And let's say the agent is like, it's like, I need to talk to someone, right? And then you're monitoring this, and notice this is just a test bot, so we have some fake data that comes out here. But notice there's the user monitoring the conversation doesn't then click here and say, take chat from bot. Automatically, it'll say the agent has taken over this conversation. You can say, hi, how can help you? My name is Ken. Something like that. And now a person is talking taken over from the bot. So again, there's companies out there that are looking at how a bot can be yet another way of helping customers or helping customers get information or support and so on. And this system kind of shows you how you can hook in through APIs the actual bot conversation from a web-based client. You could do this remotely. You could do it, it doesn't have to have anything to do with where the bot's hosted or where the user is communicating with it. See? So I close that, and I think that's it for the Messenger demo.
So we'll go back to the main slide deck. So in summary, just as resources, if you didn't hear the address, it's dev.live.com as the place where you can go and actually learn about a lot of the stuff. Access to various betas, like for example the Windows Live Messenger beta is now open and public. You can get access to that through ideas.live.com. The Microsoft Gadgets site, microsoftgadgets.com, is the place for both Gadgets Gallery as well as the Search Macro Gallery. And then Ken actually has a blog. You can actually add his RSS feed to his feed or to your feed and find out latest happenings on Windows Live. So thank you very much.